is David Hicks. I call him the Australian Che Guevara. He's a lost guy. He goes to Afghanistan. He trains in a training camp there. Never threatens an American. We sentence him to spend 9 months in prison. He serves time there. He's freed. Second military commission defendant is Hamdan. Hamdan is the driver of Osama bin Laden. Now I thought, well, let me review the Nuremberg trials. Let's see if they got Adolf Hitler's chef and the driver on the Autobahn there, right? He gets 5 months. He's already free in Yemen, that now new breeding ground of terrorism. The third one, Balul, his case is still on appeal. He was tried and convicted for making a recruiting video that was utilized over in Afghanistan, and actually you can find it on the on Google at present. Now, it didn't constitute incitement under the Supreme Court rulings, Brandenburg and Ohio, for those of you who know your Supreme Court decisions. That is required to have speech and lose First Amendment protection. There's no showing that somebody who watched the video then turned around and felt it was encouraging them to kill Americans. But this is sort of reverse Google in the United States. We have not a trial in the civilian court. He's a military. It's a war crime now to exercise free speech abroad if you're not an American citizen, which is what the United States has argued. As the case goes up on appeal, it may actually get to the United States Supreme Court. Now, what do we do now? What do we do now is we the people. There's only one way, in my judgment, that things are going to change. And we have got to organize, we've got to insist that Congress recapture its powers, that it's all surrendered. And we cannot be discouraged with the fact that it looks like a huge uphill battle. Because the fact that our voices are relatively lonely, I would say. Because the American empire has indoctrinated the American people from day one into thinking we have to go everywhere, we're obliged, we are the superpower of the world, we bring liberty, freedom, greatness, superiority, and safety by sending the military abroad, never asking why. Never asking, well, is that what our founding documents intended our mission to be? And it's a matter of speaking, protesting, but never compromising principles. This idea, in my judgment, if you want real change, well, you all have to compromise your principles and get together. Hey, that maybe works if you're looking about striking a deal. But if you want to change the country, no way. That first person who stood up and said, slavery is bad, I was born in Arlington. That person was William Lloyd Garrison in Boston. And he stood up and said, with his Liberator newspaper, slavery is bad. You're crazy. This is 1831. It'll never happen. But he was there when the 13th Amendment outlawing slavery was ratified. We can never be discouraged. The process itself, knowing we're speaking for the highest principles, the loftiest endeavors of the Founding Fathers, has to be its own reward. Obviously, we want to say progress, but we never give up principles. Abraham Lincoln said on his way to the White House after having been elected in 1860, when he was discussing his view of the need for the Union to remain intact, sooner than surrender these principles, I would be assassinated upon this spot. This is he's speaking in New York. Cooper's Union. He said that without knowing what lied ahead. That's the same attitude that we have to have. And we will go down in history. We want to be like Winston Churchill. This was our finest hour. Thank you.
I don't know about you, but I kind of wanted to chant "Run, Bruce, Run." You heard it here first, folks. Finally, we have Jacob Hornberger, and you've seen his name as the co-editor of several books. He's the founder and president of the Future of Freedom Foundation, which is based near here in Fairfax, Virginia. Please welcome Jacob Hornberger.
I'd like to share with you 4 reasons why conservatives should reject the war on terror, including the swampland of imperialism and interventionism from which this war has spawned. Reason 1, fiscal responsibility. Every conservative believes in fiscal responsibility. And yet what do we have? We have out of control federal spending. Every one of you right now is starting out your life $40,000 in debt. That's your share of the debt that this government has imposed on you. And they're just getting started. They got a credit card that is drawn on your account that has no limit. And they're just getting started. Family of 4 has a debt of $160,000. And that's to fund, in large part, all these foreign escapades. And guess who's financing this debt? That would be the Chinese Communist regime. Now, I know one thing about conservatives. Conservatives hate communists. That's what the Cold War was all about. That's what the Vietnam War was about. That's what the Korean War was all about. And yet now our government is in hock to one of the most brutal communist regimes in history to fund this imperialism and interventionism. How much more disgraceful and despicable could you get than that? And guess how they're going to pay off this debt? You see, you already see them cranking up the printing presses. And that's, of course, where the Federal Reserve comes in. You guys, you've heard of the Federal Reserve. That's what they've done since 1913. Every time they go on these spending binges, they just start printing the money. And it's a default. They're defaulting on the debt by paying the creditors in debased dollars. And when the prices start rising across the board in response to this devalued currency, you're going to see the liberals start crying against greed and the bankers and the big businessmen that are raising their prices. Because they're not going to know that it's government that's behind this. Debasing the currency, then come the price controls, the long lines, the rationing, everything that is antithetical to what conservatives believe in terms of sound money and free enterprise, free markets. This is the cost of empire and interventionism. Debt, spending, taxes, and inflation. All the things that conservatives are against with respect to their devotion to fiscal responsibility. Two, all this war on terrorism and interventionism and imperialism is making us less safe as Americans, less secure. And conservatives stand for security. They stand for safety. They believe in these things. Every time the troops kill somebody new, every week, whether it's a bunch of children because of some misguided missile, or their mother, or even just the people, a guy that's on his wedding day and he gets his bride bombed on their wedding day and killed, or even the guys that are just defending their country against invaders, something that we would be likely to do if, say, China invaded America. They've got friends, they got relatives, and those people, the survivors of the people who were killed or maimed, they get angry. I mean, that's human nature. If somebody comes over here to the United States and kills a bunch of Americans, Americans get angry and they want vengeance. So that's human nature. It's human nature all over the world. Now, conservatives stand for national defense, right? I mean, haven't we heard that for decades? Strong national defense. Strong national defense. Okay. Let's bring all the troops home from all those hundreds of countries where they're stationed, out of Iraq, out of Afghanistan, immediately bring them home. Let's defend.